Okay, welcome everybody. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, for those of you just joining us, we do have a lovely QR code here on our screen. Please feel free to use your phone and scan it up. Sign up to the Slido. If you are a partner or a leader and you're wishing to participate on the Slido, please put DQ in brackets after your username of choice. And then that way there we'll be able to know who is who. You can definitely submit questions for the AMA panel using this Slido and later for the quiz. So everybody, welcome to our lovely opening up our Jira and Confluence for spring cleaning, spring candlelight ACE. We are extremely happy to have all of you here today. I want to take a minute to introduce and welcome all of our Canadian ACE leaders. Over in Vancouver, we've got Brendan and Frida. Myself from Winnipeg. From Toronto, we have Susan, Danny, Sarba, and Mashin. And I apologize. I know I have probably butchered that immensely. I'm still working on it, so apologies. In Montreal, we've got Martin, Laurent, Michael, and Denis. We also have JP from Quebec City. And then from our Kitchener and Waterloo, our newest region to rejoin the group is Jimmy and Jovanka as well. So you can reach out to any of us. We'd be more than happy to lend a hand at any time during and after this presentation. And we also want to take a moment to thank all of our sponsors today. Without you guys, this event wouldn't have been possible. So again, thank you very much to this lovely group of sponsors. And then to go ahead and get started, we have Carolyn for talking about our Confluence spring cleaning. So Carolyn, I'm going to hand this over, screen share over to you.
All right, thank you, thank you. I'm going to attempt to now share my screen with my presentation, and you'll tell me if it works.
All right. Beautiful. We see your PowerPoint. Oh,
are you seeing the presenter notes, not the
yeah, just the notes.
Okay, let me share again. Sorry, you'll have to excuse me. I actually have not used PowerPoint in a long time, but it has the right template, so that was the important piece. I'm gonna play and then share screen, I think.
Yeah, that tends to be
desktop too. Okay. All right, let me know if this is better.
Much better.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So welcome everyone. Thank you for inviting me to the ACE leaders. Many of you I have seen virtually, and I saw Frida, I believe, last year at Atlassian Team Summit at Team 2023 in Vegas. So it is coming up again. So I hope to see and meet other new people and yeah, continue what we have going on here with this great community. So I'm an online community member. My name is Carolyn French. I also work at Tempo, one of the largest vendors of solutions within the Atlassian marketplace. Before I worked there, I have also worked at, I started in my career actually in a software development team, and we migrated to Jira. And I actually set up Confluence and Jira for the teams at my company. So this talk kind of comes from my background, my present, and then I even did some learning too to see what was available on data center now versus, you know, premium in cloud. Like there's definitely been some nice advancements in doing your spring cleaning in Confluence. So hopefully, even if you're a Confluence guru, like I consider myself to know more than average, I suppose. I learned some new things, so hopefully you can too today. Here's my email in case you'd like to get in touch with me. In case you're a customer of Tempo as well, you can feel free to reach out. All right, so I wanted to cover some tips that I have. So keep it light, keep it easy for you to implement, depending on whether you're a Confluence site administrator, whether you're a space administrator, maybe you're just on a team, right? So hopefully in this few minutes I have talking to you, you'll be able to see a little bit of everything, and maybe take some takeaways to take back to your team. So you can never start spring cleaning without seeing what first is there, right? So this step can take you a long time, depending on whether you're doing a site, whether you're doing space, whether whether your team writes Confluence pages every day. But you really do have to assess what's there, and is it still meeting your team's needs, your company's needs? Is it meeting your stakeholder needs? Is it relevant? Is it searchable? Can you navigate through your space structures to get to what you need to find? One thing that I think is really nice on an organizational level to figure out is what is your criteria for obsolete content? So different, different people have different definitions of this, but at least to, get together some stakeholders and understand what is still working for, what you decide as a company, and then also as a team at the team level. What is still something that you want to be able to find in the structure, in your space structure, and find quickly? And is it still, what you need? Bless you.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So one of the, so also identify spaces that are no longer used on a regular basis. So you may have spaces you set up for a project and then the project ended. So just doing that kind of cleanup. And while you're figuring out what, identifying these things, also take a look at your processes. Is there something that you missed where you should be closing it out as a result of some steps that you did? Like a project, to kind of close out the project at the end, where maybe you archive a bunch of content or archive the space if you can. So these are kind of thoughts that we'll get to in another tip, but it's like thinking about the future as well while you're dealing with the present. So my next tip is kind of a little tangential, but it's something that I always recommend because I think it has a lot of benefits, but it can have a lot of benefits for your Confluence and the proliferation that we like to see in wikis, right? So with all things, you can have a bunch of good things, you can have a bunch of awesome templates that you use in Confluence, but if these are, actually clogging up your time, clogging up, your schedules, your calendars, teams can get overwhelmed, not have time to do the important things. And so really having this play in your back pocket can be really cool. So what is a ritual reset? A ritual reset is an Atlassian play. So Atlassian has developed a series of plays within a playbook. So you can find these on the Atlassian website. And the ritual reset is about reflecting on and reevaluating your team's meetings and processes to create more space for what matters. So this is prep time, 10 minutes, run time, 90 minutes. And it is meant for the team. So, max 10 people to run this play. What I like about this is you can put together all of the activities that your team is doing, what we call like rituals. So they could be, you always do meeting notes during your weekly meetings. So that's a ritual. Even meetings themselves can be a ritual that you talk about. And you put it all together, and then actually I can take you to the template, the Confluence template, because then once you're doing this audit of all of your rituals, and then you're voting on what your rituals you want to keep, rituals you want to improve, and rituals to remove. So you're really talking through like what's working about these, and then if there's anything that needs improvement or what's not working. And maybe in here, you can also talk about kind of cleaning up the mental space that you have around these rituals. So maybe there's things you did, even quarterly, but definitely last year that you can, get a mental freshness, and your team can kind of clean the slate of what you're trying to do and what makes sense to do. In my team, we add a time dimension to it to see where we spend our time. We are tempo, we do timesheets. to also see what value we're getting out of it. So this is another nice way to look at your rituals and see, maybe you have a ritual that you see a lot of value out of, and it only takes a few minutes, versus a ritual that's not like maybe you're not getting that much value out of it and you spend a lot of time on as a team. So this is another way of saying, like, all right, maybe we delegate this, this part of, taking Confluence notes to one person, and this is how they organize it. And they put a little page include to surface the important stuff in a team page where we can all see it. So you guys kind of figure out what follow-ups you want out of this ritual reset. But I do think, like, teams have always looked and seen there is a need for paring down and getting back to the basics and the essentials. So that's the ritual reset. Any questions while I'm going through? Or do you want to wait till the end? Okay. If you think of any, feel free. All right, so you weren't going to get to the end of someone presenting about Confluence spring cleaning without talking about archiving. So there's some nice features within Confluence that we're going to talk about that make it so that things are cleaner in your Confluence instance and not clogging up your search results. So the great part about Confluence, and one of the reasons why I'm spreading the word about Confluence, is it's quite easy to promote transparency within your organization, because anyone can find anything. I promote keeping, spaces open, but when you do that, there can just be a lot of overwhelming information. So you really want your search results to be relevant. So one way you can improve, obviously, the relevance of search results is you archive spaces that you no longer need. And on cloud, you can archive pages as well. So what it does when you archive a page, it removes it from your page tree and it stores it at the bottom in an archive. It doesn't actually fully delete your content, just changes the access to the page. So it's excluded from quick search and analytics. It links to these archived pages will still work. So if you did have, very active links, you don't have to worry about that. They'll still go there. And it'll also have an archived little lozenge next to it, so people will know it's an archived page. And it does disable certain actions like page editing, commenting, liking. Of course, you can get it back by restoring it from the archive back out. So, but at least these are like techniques that we have to prevent, your search results from getting to the point where you can't find anything through the noise. On Premium Cloud, as I found out, as I did a little research for this presentation, you can do bulk archive and archive a page with all its nested pages underneath. So that's really convenient. And it definitely tracks with how Atlassian is trying to make the Premium Cloud a better offering, a more enterprise offering. So yes, there will be lots to archive on enterprise instances, I'm sure. All right, so as you're going through, of course, we're preparing for the future too. So that's my next tip here. Yes, so I did mention some other tips of preparing for the future. You're basically like doing an audit on your practices, seeing what you can do better in the future at the same time. One kind of nice thing that I wanted to pull out here is periodically updating any of your process pages with other teams. So if you're, an organization that uses a lot of team spaces, you may have kind of rules of engagement or otherwise like how teams interact, maybe handoffs, things that you want documented that both teams or many teams can access. But a lot of times we lose track of what's in other team spaces, right? They organize their space, they own their space, and before you know it, they reorganize, you have no idea where their stuff is. One way to do this quite simply is to use the page include macro. And so you have it in one page and you keep it clean by deciding, okay, this is the page, we'll make sure we all follow it. And we only update the single source of truth when we meet to decide, okay, is there any update to the process page? And then this is mirrored in other spaces for the other teams. So you can fight about who gets the single source of truth page, but in the end, it doesn't matter, right? That page is all you edit it when you have an agreement or changes that come up. But it makes it quite simple to use Confluence for that and to keep everything clean, because then you don't have to update it in multiple places. So, so that's a little like prepare for the future nugget. And oh yeah, so I just wanted to show you also, I talked a lot about cloud, but with Data Center, there's some nice features here where you can set retention rules on automatically deleting previous versions of pages and files, identifying unused spaces. So this is using analytics. You can like quickly sort to the top which spaces are not very used. So that's convenient. And then archiving unused spaces. So these are tools for more enterprise level to do cleanup. There's also a bunch of marketplace apps that do help with this. So if you go on the marketplace, you can also search for Confluence, and there's actually some recommendations on Atlassian's documentation as well for a few apps that can help you do more automated cleanups, I should say. There's still always, doesn't matter what tool you throw at it, like wiki gardening as they call it, and Confluence spring cleaning. This is always going to take you bringing together your stakeholders, understanding what you want to do with things, how you want your wiki to grow, how you want to work together. All of these things aren't solved overnight, but it is nice to take some back to actionable things that you can do with your teams to make this kind of easier to grow. Because as you know, when you don't have rules in Confluence, it's yeah, it can get a bit crazy. So some of this guidance I think can be really helpful to think about if you hadn't before, but also to use the tools that are available to you in Confluence itself to then make it easier. All right. Does anyone have any questions? I'm running about a minute early. We can take questions now or later.
Yeah, we have Ask Me Anything for later. So.
Okay.
So
feel free to post the question to the Slido, and we'll come back to it.
Thank you, Jimmy, for posting the link. You're awesome.
So the next presentation is from Jimmy Seddon about a badge that you can do as a certification. Go, Jimmy, your turn.
All right, thank you guys. Let me see if this is going to work. So you guys should be seeing not the presenter notes, right?
No, you see
Yes.
the slides.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. Thank you everyone for having me here and letting me talk a little bit about things. So I was asked about house cleaning, but certifications seem to be more my area of expertise at this point. So what I thought I'd do is I would bring up the fact that there is actually a pro skill badge you can earn by talking about cleanup things. So for anyone who doesn't know me, I am an online leader first. I have also jumped in as one of the leaders for the Kitchener-Waterloo chapter, which has just restarted. So what we're going to talk about today. So I pulled a lot of these tips from the Atlassian University course on governance and housekeeping, which I will just quickly throw in the chat. It is a free course. So I absolutely recommend everyone checking it out, as it will lead towards, going through for a pro skill badge. And we'll talk about what those are and why that's important in a little bit. And then, we'll talk through the tips as well that come from that course. So as I just mentioned, these have all been pulled there. I would recommend going to that link and checking out the full course, because it's going to talk about more than just the high level that I'm going to cover. As far as what we're going to talk about, I'm hoping that a lot of these things are not going to be eye-opening things, but they should be things that we all know that we need to clean up. And I'm just as much of an offender of this, of just letting it go to the wayside and not taking care of it as regularly as I should. But, we'll just go over some of these things. So first off, with projects, for both Data Center and Cloud Premium, you can actually Cloud Premium and Enterprise. Archiving projects is something that you can do. Similar to Confluence, what it's going to do is hide it from lists. It's going to hide it from search and reports. The data is not deleted, so it's always something that you can recover from and restore the project if you're interested in just removing things that people see. On data center, archiving issues is also something you can do, which the same type of thing. It's going to hide the issues as well as all the subtasks that are associated with it, just to make things a little bit easier on not being able to see those show up in search. Moving projects to trash bin, which is a cloud only option. So on cloud, you don't just outright delete things, you move them into the trash, which they can be restored from. They are automatically deleted after 60 days of sitting in the trash bin, or you can manually purge them out earlier. Project keys are only reusable once something has been permanently deleted. On the note of permanently deleting projects, you should consider backing them up first, because once they're gone, they are gone, regardless of whether you're on data center or cloud. Once you've deleted it, it's kind of a non-recoverable. I assume on data center, if you had sort of a backup of some sorts, you're going to be able to get it back, but you will need backups for that. What it will do as a part of deleting it is it's going to remove all issues, all versions, and all components for that project. But any of the schemes, most of which will be shared, won't be removed because they will potentially be cross-project. Moving on to custom fields, this is one that I am a massive offender of, as far as the number of them that we have that are unused or duplicates. So one of the first things you should do is identify those that aren't being used, and you can use that by the last use date. There is a low issue count on DC, which will show you how many issues actually have a field filled in, and then also look for things as far as what has screen schemes attached to those fields, so that you can see which ones aren't actually even being displayed versus those that are being displayed in 60 different schemes. Identify duplicates. I know that we have at least 3 different priority fields that all have different types of values that, consider trying to find a way to merge and consolidate where possible, so that instead of having 2 different priority fields, one that uses t-shirt sizes and one that uses a high, medium, low, see if people can use common language and, all use the same type of fields, so that you reduce the amount of load you're putting on the system with those. And then also cleaning up custom field options. So, from a front end user perspective, disabling entries that are no longer valid. I know that our company has a field that's used for the various fun team names for the development teams, as teams are removed because they split into 2 smaller teams moving forward. Disabling those entries and or deleting them so that the list isn't massive is definitely something that can help. It keeps your list current, and it helps make it so that you don't have this long scrolling, unmaintainable list. Configurations and schemes. So, this is going to be anything from workflows to field configurations to screen schemes, even permissions. I'm sure I'm forgetting other ones, but basically, start with your low-hanging fruit. Look for the things that don't actually have an active project associated with them. Anything that might have been saved as a backup when you were publishing a new scheme. Those are sort of your low-hanging fruit to look at whether you can delete those first. Obviously, backups from like 2 years ago. Yes, I have a couple of those still. Probably aren't things that you need to keep around. So, those are things that you can help remove to sort of clean up the system a bit. Before deleting, though, verify any impacts that you're going to have, such as validators or post functions, making sure that any custom fields that are being used are sort of removed, or I should say that you're not using them in an active workflow before removing them. Looking for opportunities to consolidate schemes. So if you have 2 sets of workflows that essentially do the exact same thing for 2 different projects, do you actually need two different schemes, or is that something where they could both use a common workflow between the two of them? And then this is actually from the course itself. There are actually marketplace apps to help you with this sort of thing as far as identifying these things. So don't hesitate to go and see if there's something on the marketplace that can help you identify craft within Jira. Boards, filters, and dashboards. Oh my. Start with cleaning up unused items. And I will say, for anyone who's not an admin, you can help with this too. If you have things that you built for filters and dashboards for, say, fiscal reporting on 2020, and it is still there, but you don't need it, since you are the personal owner of it, go ahead and delete those things ahead of time for your administrators. That will help make their lives a lot easier in not having to go and find you and ask if these things are still in use. Anything that is no longer in use that can be cleaned up, that's just one way that you can help clean things up in your instance. Project admins can obviously help identify some of the things that are no longer in use, as they should have an ear to the ground a bit more within their own projects. And then Jira admins can help change ownership of things, especially those where there were queries that were created by someone who doesn't work at the company anymore. The ownership can be changed so that someone else can evaluate whether it's still something needed or if it can be deleted. And then review sort of, I just talked about that. Okay, I am going to move on to components and versions. This is sort of a similar boat, but only now looking at within the project level itself. Making sure that the components you have listed there are still relevant for what the project's being used for, and that the leads are set correctly, and that versions are set to the appropriate things, whether they need to be released, whether they should be merged, whether they should be deleted, and then most importantly, whether they should be archived, similar to sort of your custom fields with options. Anything that is no longer really relevant for the fix or effects versions, consider archiving those releases so that they aren't polluting a long list of release versions. Lastly, and I know we were just talking about using apps to help with this, but you should also make sure to take a look at the apps you're using, make sure that you are actually making use of the functionality you have. Consider doing an audit of that ahead of the app renewing, so that you're not going to incur additional costs if it's something that's not being used. Use test environments or sandbox environments to help you validate whether there are going to be massive impacts if you were to disable an app that you don't think is needing or isn't needed anymore. And then I'd also recommend just keeping an eye on updates to app functionality. And that could be ones that you're already paying for, or ones that might help consolidate a couple of functions together. So if you have 5 different apps, but there's one out there that will do all 5 things, consider looking at sort of the cost benefit analysis of sticking with what you have versus going with something else. So that is sort of a high level overview of things that you can do to help clean up your Jira instance. Let's talk about the Pro Skill badges. So as I mentioned, this is part of the Jira governance and house cleaning course, which leads into a Pro Skill badge for that course. And what Pro Skill badges are is they're credentials that you can earn in addition to the certifications. Badges are usually more targeted at specific types of things, such as the house cleaning that we talked about today, issue security, workflows, things of that nature. And one of the greatest things about them is that they all generally have a free course on the university, which will help you prepare for a shorter quiz that you can take to earn that credential. So when you go and start looking at them as far as, how and when you should use them, I'm going to say that everyone is on their own different certification journey. So I know people who like to start with a pro badge because it's a very targeted, smaller thing that you need to know, and you can take that exam unproctored. And I do have a little asterisk there that These are all unproctored, except as far as I know, the Confluence Space Administrator one. And if you don't know what proctored means, the proctored exams, you either need to sign into the online portal where you have a webcam and a microphone and a very clean environment that someone is going to be watching you while you take the exam, or you have to go to a testing center. I find that a super stressful thing to have to do because it takes a lot of effort and there are technical challenges with doing the proctored ones. And then on the other side of going to a testing center, it's say you don't know how far away one that's accredited will be from you. I know the closest one to me is about 45 minutes away. So, you know, you have to balance that off. The pro skill badges, though, are unproctored, meaning you don't have someone watching you. So you can sign in, do it at whenever you want. And, you know, it takes you X amount of minutes to complete it. They're generally smaller than the full certification exams, and you know you get the results relatively quickly after that. So you can start with one of those to sort of have something that you can put on your profile as a small piece that you know and you've earned a pro skill badge, or you can use the pro skill badges to help extend your active certifications. So for instance, I have a couple of them that are going to be expiring in July. I can take this specific pro skill badge and it will extend the duration that I have for a couple of my certifications to be active by an additional 24 months. So you have to balance off what you're planning on doing as far as, you know, the university and learning, and if you're going to get into certifications and how far you want to go. It's one of those things that can definitely be beneficial in helping you prepare for taking a certification because you'll know some deeper knowledge about a specific thing, or you can go for the certifications and then use it as a means to help extend your certifications so that you don't have to be taking the full certification as often. So that's all I have for this. I generally don't use all the time because I don't really like listening to myself talk, but if anyone has any questions, I am happy to answer them now, or you can add them into the chat for the AMA later.
I have question.
Yes.
You were talking about data center. Does this apply to cloud, Jira Cloud as well?
So anything that I mentioned that was data center or cloud specific are specific to those platforms. A lot of this is not specific to cloud or data center. Cleaning up your Jira instance is cleaning up your Jira instance. But some of those features are specific to the platforms. So if I just go back here, and if we talk specifically about projects, you know, archiving projects is available in data center.
And
It's
cloud,
available in
maybe.
cloud, but only if you are on a premium or enterprise subscription. Moving projects into the trash is a cloud only thing. Archiving issues is a data center only thing. So yes, there are some things that are specific to each one, but most of the stuff is just general knowledge between both of them.
Thank you. And another question. You mentioned that how to get rid of not working assignees, that the people that not work anymore in the
So
and-
specifically what I was mentioning with that is that you'll want your Jira admins to help you in changing the ownership of
yes
objects that
yes.
are assigned to people that no longer work there.
Yes, for that I have a question. I know the only way to change ownership is for Jira server. It is free. It is app that is free, that shared manager. How you can do it in case of, let's say, Jira Cloud?
Yeah.
Initially there should be the if the anybody creates an issue, that should be shared item.
Are you guys still seeing the screen I have here, or did that go away?
We see
yeah.
we see your PowerPoint.
Perfect. Okay, so we're just going to do a quick live demo then. So what you're going to want to look at is when you go into Jira software, and I'm just hoping that I have something set up here for this. So first, I love just using the shared to go to shared filters and dashboards. So the way I brought up that menu is by hitting the period key, and that allows you to look for pretty much any action you want. When you start typing in shared, it's going to give you either shared filters or dashboards. And then once you're on this page here, you can search for things. As you can see, I don't have too many things, but I can see who the owner is. I can search by the owner.
What if
And then I
it
can
is
change who
private
the owner is.
filter? Sorry about that. What if it's private filter? Private filter.
So private ones are going to be a challenge. I'll just say that much. There's not too much you can do about things that are 100% private, or at least to my knowledge.
No, all the private filters also appear here. Any and all filters you'll be able to see if you're a sysadmin. Yeah, you'll be able to see everything here.
Okay, perfect. There you go.
I have something to add to Olga. If you are an org admin, not just a simple admin, you will be able to see all private filters, and you will be able in the end to change the owner. So you need to have the permission of the org admin, different than rather than default admin. So
I don't understand, how can I do that? Let's say the person who created a filter is not working anymore, retired or laid off.
Yeah, but
How can
I'm
I
in the
do
same.
that?
I'm in the same situation. I have a previous colleague that doesn't work anymore in the company, and me being the old admin of the instance, I'm able to see his private filters, and I change the owner from him to me. So you need some specific rights to see the private filters of the user
What are these rights?
These rights I told you earlier. You need to be an org admin of the instance that you coordinate. So I think you need to I don't know to speak with someone on your company who manage and install and coordinate the instance, and check the rights, the permission, who is the org admin of that instance. So
Caroline has posted a link in the chat as well that will direct you to sort of how to manage these shared filters and what permissions you need in order to.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jimmy.
So next, since tool is not the only thing that needs cleaning, we have invited an agile coach. Please welcome Yaya Fella, that will give us a few tips around backlog management. Your turn, Yaya.
Thanks, Denis. Just let me know when you see my presentation.
Yep,
Yeah,
we do see it.
It's okay. Okay, good. Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here to talk about how to turn a messy backlog into a clean one. And I'm Yaya, and I'm an agile coach. I'm an employee from Kanban, Quebec. If you want to see more about our company, you can just go to our website. Today, I'm not going to talk about how to clean up your backlog in Jira, but in general, okay? Also, I will talk about a couple of concepts, but I won't go into detail. I've added a slide at the end of this presentation with takeouts. On your own, you will be able to learn more about each topics, okay? Let's get back to the topic of this presentation. What is a messy backlog? A messy backlog looks like this messy office. Okay, you will find many items. You don't know where to start. Everything has to be done. Many items are too detailed, and you can't make a forecast about when the work will be done. Now, let's see what is a clean backlog. According to Roman Pickler, it's a deep backlog. What does it mean? It means detailed appropriately, estimated, emergent, and prioritized. Let's dive to understand these 4 properties, okay? A clean backlog will look like this stack of items. At the bottom, you will find items with a lower priority. These items will be large and not detailed. At the top, you will find the highest priority items. It will be thin and well detailed, okay? But if you want to know which item can be detailed, think about your next product goal. All the items outside of your next product goal should have the lowest level of details, okay? Let's see how to write an item. You can write an item by following the 3 C's from Ron Jeffries. The 3 C's stand for card, conversations, and confirmation. The card refers to something you can hold in your hands, like a sticky note. In the front, you will write a short description following this pattern. As a persona, I will just here. As a persona or a type of user, I want to do an action so that a benefit or a value. The last point is the most important. If you don't know what the feature will bring to your user, you can just put this item aside, okay? Then this description will serve as an invitation to discuss with the stakeholders, the users, the development team, and the product owners. Also, at the bottom, at the back of your card, you will note the elements that will confirm that the development is done. Also, if you want to add some element such as mockups and something like that, you can. Okay. There is a question, maybe. No, it's not for me. Okay, let's move on. What is an estimated backlog? In my opinion, it's important to estimate the items that will allow you to reach your product goal. For the other items, remember that it should not you should not waste your time on these items. If you want to estimate them, do it very carefully. Okay. There is 2 things important to remember. The first one is that it's difficult to be precise when estimating. The best way is to compare items to each other. This way, you can generate rich and interesting conversation. Okay. The last point, it's very important too. It's that a forecast, it's not a team commitment because it's just difficult to be precise. Let's keep in mind that forecasts are only forecasts. Okay. How to estimate? We can use the Fibonacci sequence, these numbers here. For example, let's take a backlog item and say it's a 5, just randomly like that. We will put this item in 5. Then we take a second item and we will compare it to the first one. Is that easier or harder than the first one? If it's easier, you can maybe it will be maybe 1 or 2 or a 3. And if it's harder, it will be maybe an 8 or a 13 or 21. Okay. After that, you will do the same thing with the third item by comparing it with the first one and the second one. And you will do the same work for all the other items you have. You can also use thesaurusing. For me, according to me, I like to use this system for large items. As for the Fibonacci sequence, it's important to compare the items between them. Here, it's just indicative numbers, just to have an example, okay? Now, let's see what is an emergent backlog. As you know, agile processes promote iterative and incremental approaches. Thanks to this, we can collect feedbacks from stakeholders and users. So we can add, modify, reprioritize, and refine items to the backlog. This is something all the people do on a regular basis, but the last thing we can do, and we almost never do, it's to delete items from the backlog. It's like archive from the first presentation. You have to remove items, okay? But just keep time to clean up your backlog by removing items. For example, you can target the oldest items or those that have not been modified for a long time to review them with stakeholders and users, just to be sure that those items it's no longer important to you. By the way, I have another thing to tell you about that. You can remove items from your backlog, but you can also remove features from your product. If you don't choose a feature, just put it in the trash, okay? Now let's see what the prioritized backlog is. When we talk about prioritization, we are talking about the most important items to be done. To do this, we can use a lot of things like user value, business value, development cost, cost of delay, knowledge gain, legal issues like new regulations. But the most important thing is to determine your own value by talking to your stakeholders, the users, the development team, and the product owner. Just find your value, okay? Now I want to show you two interesting models to prioritize. The first one is the Moscow method. It has 4 categories: the must-have, the should-have, the could-have, and the won't-have. The first one includes all the non-negotiable and mandatory items. The second one is for important but not vital items. The could-have includes all the nice-to-have items. And the last one includes all the items that are not required for the current product goal. I think for this one, just keep in mind, if you have a lot of things in there, maybe you can remove it after a few months or a few weeks, okay? The last model I want to share with you, it's the Kano model. This is a little complex. I will try to be I will try to explain it in an easy way. As you can see on an x-axis, we see if the customer's expectation have been exceeded or not. On the y-axis, we see the customer satisfaction or dissatisfaction. And we see 3 interesting areas. Okay, below the red line, just here, there are the features that the customer expects to have, but which not provide any satisfaction to him. These are the features that are taken for granted. So be careful if you don't make an essential feature, okay? The blue line here is for the expected features that will make the user feel satisfied. He will be very happy to have a feature that exceeds his requirements. And we have the green area here. For this one, it's for the wow effect. Okay, the user does not expect this feature, but he will be very excited to have it. Here is an example with the latest iPhone. The fun call feature here, it's something just essential for a smartphone. We have here the innovative camera. It's on the blue line because it's just something the user wants and it will satisfy him. And the last one, the emergency SOS via satellite. It's a new feature. It's just for the wow effect. It's something just the customer will be happy, but it's not something expected. To finish, I have some verbatim you can hear from your user for each area. Here in the red zone, you have of course, so what? Here, terrible, this is broken. Here in the blue line, this is not as good as I expected. And the other part here, very nice, much faster than the previous version. And here in the green zone, we have, I don't even expect that. And what a surprise, great job. Okay, let's move on. Let's finish with this quote from Roman Pichler. To ensure that a product backlog is deep and stay that way, you have to groom and refine it regularly. Grooming the product backlog is an ongoing collaborative process that involves the product owner and team. Just like cleaning a house, it should not be on a yearly basis, but on a regular basis, okay? Maybe in a daily basis or a week basis, but not even more, okay? Now you know how to transform this messy office into a clean one. As I say at the beginning of this presentation, I have added links if I invite you to go deeper into these topics if you want. And thank you. If you have some question, don't hesitate to tell me.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all of our speakers. It's been great having you here today and speaking to everybody, sharing everything you know. But I'm afraid our speakers are not done yet. It is time for our AMA panel. So before I go ahead and set up our lovely AMA panel view here, I'll give everybody a moment to scan or slide into Slido and set themselves up.
So we have a number of questions that have already been posted. If you can look at any of those questions, vote on them to sort of increase the speed with which we get to them, or add any additional ones that you don't see that are there.
All right, Brendan, you let me know when you're ready for me to swap over.
I think we're ready to go. We can set it up there.
Awesome. I will get set up then. All right. And okay.
Could you please show the Slido code again?
Oh, yes, the Slido code. Yes, one moment. Sorry.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Oh. Ah, there we go. Great. We've got Brendan. Carolyn. Sorry. It's not, I will admit, this is not the most intuitive immersion experience there. Carolyn, you're good at it.
All right.
This is hilarious, I gotta say.
Okay, well, welcome to our AMA for today's session. So we've got about 10 odd questions, and feel free to keep adding more as we go. We'll have what do we got? We got about 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so. So we'll dive straight into the first question, and feel free, any of the panel, the presenters can feel free to hop in. But question is, how can we encourage others in our company to cooperate with the cleaning process of these tools? Are there any tips and tricks that anyone can suggest? That's always, the technology part of it is one problem, but the people problem is a whole other ball game. So, any thoughts?
I can take the Confluence side. I think it does help to have a strong commitment at all levels for Confluence and transparency, and like, what are the benefits you're getting out of being able to find content in different spaces. Like, having kind of a knowledge management program in your organization really helps with this, because then you have tracking what are the goals and why you're spending this time doing this. Otherwise, it can be like, oh, well, this takes up too much time on, these people, and it's taking them away from stuff. And the whole point is to identify what the value is to the company of keeping Confluence clean, of being able to search and find information. Like, how much time are you saving because someone can find something in 2 minutes because they searched on Confluence, versus bothering, an expert in that area, swinging by their office, spending an hour talking to them, trying to figure out. So I found that really helps to encourage others. It's just making people more aware of the advantages of why this matters within a company. Other kind of ways, tips and tricks you can use is creating owners for content. That could work for Jira as well, like owners for projects, so that you have like kind of a decision maker that you can go to that can like rally their stakeholders and then make a final call on things. So that can help too. But yeah, being kind of clear on what needs to be done and then how to do it.
Okay. Any other tips, Jimmy? Or yes. No?
I think Caroline covered that pretty thoroughly.
Okay. Can you recommend any good marketplace apps for cleanup? I know you touched on that in passing, Jimmy, but are there any specific ones that people should be checking out?
As much as it was there, that was sort of a recommendation in the course, is just a broad look at apps. I don't actually use any, so I can't make any recommendations. The best I can offer is go to the marketplace, look for cleanup, check your hosting type, because I know that there are some that are specific per hosting type, whether it's on-premise or cloud. And then just look at sort of the standard things you should with any app, ratings, whether it has cloud fortification for cloud ones, how many installs it has, what are people saying about it, what other things has that company done. Those are sort of just general terms of selecting apps. So I don't have anything specific for cleanup though.
Okay. Anyone else? No?
Yeah, I just copy and pasted, which did not work well to give me the links, but you can find these in the Atlassian marketplace. These are from the Confluence documentation. So I have not used them, but I've heard of many of them. So yeah, if you're looking for apps to clean up Confluence, this gives you some automated ways to help keep things clean.
Okay, so better content archiving for Confluence, Confluence command line interface, and of course, good old script runner for Confluence.
And scroll
And scrolling.
HTML exporter. Yeah, that one so you can archive to another file system.
Nice. All right. Is there a free voucher to take the Jira Pro Skill badges? Is there a fee on the exam?
To my knowledge, the university does not have any free vouchers, though I would keep an eye open for any promotions they do. So the certifications, I believe, are like $250 US. The pro skills are 20. So I don't think you're likely to see any vouchers for those when I know $20 can be a lot for people, but just with the cost difference between that and the certification, I don't think you'll ever see any free vouchers for it.
Is there any way to get a macro view of all the spaces in Confluence to check if there is duplicate content?
Yeah, I mean, so if you're the the Confluence admin, usually, so you want to make sure that as people are setting up new spaces, you are added into new spaces so you can see them. Sometimes that can get to be a headache if you're not in them. That way you can see across all the spaces. But if you are in data center, that last screenshot that I showed will actually do this macro view of all the spaces and show whether they've been viewed or updated recently. So it is kind of like an enterprise feature that Atlassian has developed. I was longtime user of Confluence. This was always a bit of a pain point to figure out where the duplicate content is, if there's spaces that you didn't know about, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think some of the apps also help with that.
Okay.
Getting a better overview, because certainly I do think this is a bit of a deficient area, but that has been covered in data center, but maybe not as well in cloud yet.
All right. In a typical org, who is responsible for producing the 3 C's for good, well-written tickets there?
Who is responsible? The first one is the product owner, I think, just to begin. After that, it will be a common responsibility between stakeholders, users, development team, and the product owner. The product owner will just be here to be sure that all the feature be understand, and we will know that it's important. What is the why of the feature?
Okay. Sorry, there is a bit of noise on the line there. If you're able to mute yourself. There we go. All right. Okay. For Jira Cloud, is there a recommended backup process?
This is a fantastic question. So I think a lot of people were taken aback by last year's outage in cloud, where right before team, there was a massive problem. And I think that's when a lot of people started reading contracts and realized that Atlassian's contract doesn't actually say that they guarantee a backup of data. Their master terms have some very specific language about what they guarantee. So backups are relatively new. I would say if you're looking at it, there are definitely some vendors that are working on this stuff. And if you want something local, Rewind, which is in Ottawa, is definitely someone to consider. I know one that's backed by Atlassian Ventures and uses Jira as their sort of primary thing is Revise. Those are sort of the two major ones that are being talked about right now. So I would get in touch with them and see if they have something that will suit your needs. I know that companies that do backups for cloud Nothing is super cheap, so just be prepared that if you're getting into that, you're going to be it's not going to be a $3,000 a year thing. It's going to be significantly more expensive, so just be aware of that.
And if you just wanted to back up like a project that you're planning to delete, is that just like an export to XML or?
So I will say that XML exports they can work. The problem I always have with them is they're in XML, so they're really bad at special characters. So if you have a lot of stuff written in the description fields, especially things that use things like apostrophes, they may not come back in properly. So just be aware that it's XML at the end of the day, and it may not come back in the way you wanted it to.
Okay, we're doing well on time. With the Fibonacci estimate model, isn't it used to estimate complexity? How can it help with estimating effort needed to complete items in a backlog?
For me, it's pretty the same complexity, effort. And when you will speak about complexity and effort, it will just important to understand why we don't want to speak about hours. When you speak about hours, maybe I can wash my dishes in 1 hour, maybe someone in just 5 minutes, and another one maybe in 3 hours. The hours will be difficult to compare each other. But if you break down an item into different parts, maybe you want to make a feature that impact the database, just one element in the database, maybe a few elements. You can also see the API and the front end. Just compare what is comparable. You will compare the different things you will have to do for each items. And when you can compare items between them, it will be okay to use the Fibonacci sequence. And when you see the Fibonacci sequence, you will have an amount of point. You will do by sprints, maybe let's say 40 points. And with this amount of point, you can forecast with that. Maybe we can say 10 sprints if we have 400 of points in our backlogs.
Okay. Is there an optimal number of Jira administrators for a sort of 2,000 licensed Jira Confluence data center setup? I imagine this sort of varies by organization what the right number of admins are, but anybody want to take a stab at that?
Anyone else want to, or I can happily jump in on that. And I don't think there's an optimal number. I think it's going to be dependent on your user base. So where I am, we have one person in IT that's responsible for 3/4 of the company. And I have a partner in crime, and the two of us are responsible for the 30% of people that make up R&D, because R&D is a much heavier user of Jira and Confluence than the rest of the company. So, we've set it up so that we communicate with the guy in IT so that we're not stepping on anyone's toes, but we've allocated the administrators to where their questions are coming in. So I would say you need enough administrators to make sure that people are getting their questions and their issues answered in a timely manner, but not too many that you're just stepping on each other's toes all the time.
I would also say many of the problems come from having too many administrators. So this can create big problems of itself. So definitely be aware of that.
Yeah. It may take some fine tuning to get the exact right number for your organization. Yeah. All right. Is there any add-on you recommend to clean up unused custom files in Jira Cloud instance, since last used column value is not always accurate?
I'll sort of reiterate what I said earlier. I haven't really used any apps, so I can't say for sure. I generally look at sort of things that don't have any screens attached to them, and then trying to figure out what values were used in them, to know who to talk to about whether they're using a field or not. So yeah, I don't really have any add-on recommendations for that.
Any add-on help user group cleanup? I think we already covered that one for Jira and Confluence. I think we talked about add-ons.
I mean, user and groups, we haven't really talked about, but the one thing I'll say is for cloud specific, you're going to be, it gets into a hard situation of, I don't know of any add-ons for it, because anything I've experienced, I've always been using Atlassian Access. So it's been going to a third-party identity provider, and then IT is responsible for managing those, and Atlassian just synchronizes it from there. The same with when I was in on-premise with a Jira server, we use an LDAP connector. So it was always Active Directory, IT manages users and groups, and we just have it synchronized.
Yeah, I have the same experience where it's really like an IT process to remove people and add people. You just want to make sure you're not deleting them. So you want to make sure you put them inactive, and then they can still be used through the instance. They're not taking up a license, but if you have that clean, you shouldn't have other problems. There is what we talked about with the onboarding and offboarding. With if you have, filters that people own or pages that people own in Confluence, you should definitely set that up so you have some redundancies across the board, and you're able to, as an admin, keep control of content as people leave.
If you remove an unused scheme from Jira, would it also remove anything linked to it? Also like fields or screens or anything like that?
So what you will find when you go to try and do that is you will have to remove all the screens in a scheme before you can remove the scheme itself. So it's going to know there isn't anything that will automatically clean up those things. You'll have to go through and do the levels appropriately.
Have you ever had difficulties with convincing stakeholders to actually remove items from their backlogs? Sometimes people get very attached to things, even if they're long and unwieldy.
If there is a difficulty about that, it's just about how many times you will spend on it. If you have something and you don't work on it, for me it's not a problem. You can just keep it away. But I think it's much better to understand why they don't want to remove it. And by this, I want just to be sure that we are okay with the why. Why are we just keep it this thing? Why we want it? Does it bring some satisfaction to the user or something like that? What is the value of this one? And if you can't answer to this question, I just think you can put it away, and it's not something to keep. And if the stakeholders want to do the product owner job, it's okay, but it's not his job.
Okay, we've got a couple questions left. So if there's any others, do try to get them in shortly. Jira admin certification, ACP 100 exam. Do you have any advice on sort of a successful path to that?
Shameless self-promotion. I'm just going to throw a YouTube link in the chat. I have a YouTube channel. I have covered that. So I'd say it's an 11-minute video that talks about everything from reading the exam topics and focusing on the things that you don't know, as well as looking at the weights of everything in there. So if you see that, 35% is on permissions and permissions inside and out, don't bother doing as much study on permissions. If you don't know them, it's 35% of the exam, so you should probably make sure that that's where you're putting a lot of your time. But yeah, I've covered this, so that would be my recommendation.
Yeah.
And yes, as Denny has pointed out, it is not an easy one. That is definitely true. I would make sure you have taken some time on doing that one.
Okay, regarding archive spaces in Confluence, is there any option for gaining, meaning obtaining free space when like in programming in STOW? Sorry, I'm not sure. That makes sense.
I'm not sure either, but I think like I think, correct me if I'm wrong, SL. But when you are archiving, it's still on your server. So there are like the apps that were that last app that I have on the list. It's so that you can export it and put it on another backup and delete it from your current server. So I think in that case, yeah, you can gain space only when you're removing it completely, not when you're archiving it. It will still be there. It is still taking space. Did that answer the question?
Sorry, I'm the one that asked you the question. No, I'm referring not the server version. The people or the small companies is more for the small companies that uses standard version of the cloud. So when you archive either is a space or a project in Jira, could be extended for the Jira as well. In the programming language, we have STOW, like a style or something related. So when you have in the same principle apply in the Confluence or in Jira, when you archive a space or some big documents, but you don't want to rip them from your space, you just archive the space with all the attachments, and you can compress let's say this archive and to be a smaller, like in the programming. I don't know if you have experience in the programming languages. Is there are some principle that you gain memories or gain bytes or something when you look up for some programming things. So this feature or this option will be helpful for the small companies that uses Jira with or Confluence with 250 gigabytes memory. Yeah, that's the.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it enough to say, but I do know that a lot of companies have a workflow to then, beyond archiving, to archive outside of Confluence. So I do think it is in that respect to save space, but I don't know how much it is, whether it's still in the current form in the archive or whether it does any compression of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure.
All right, and our last question, what was the hardest instance to clean up? Sort of how large was it? How long did it take? So I don't know if we can hit up one for Confluence, one for Jira. Any sort of good examples?
I'm gonna go to Jimmy with that one because as far as cleaning up Confluence, I've done a lot of my own cleanups, but I'm sure there are much larger instances that have been cleaned up. So yeah. You have any stories, Jimmy?
So I can go personal experience. On the Jira side of things, ahead of going to cloud, and this would have been sometime in 2019. I worked for a small company, about 150 people. It was 40 projects, about 50,000 issues that we tried to clean up a bit ahead of doing the migration to cloud. And this was before a migration assistant was a thing. So a lot of this stuff we had to do manually. The problem we had is we had a Jira server that had existed since 2012. So there were a lot of old things from the Jira Agile days, which was when that was an add-on. It wasn't Jira software. So there were a lot of things that I was working with the cloud migration team on that just because of old data that had existed in the server was not migrating nicely. So that would be how hard was it? It was hard because there's old crufty things, and that would be the ones that I'd say are going to be the hard ones, or the things that have existed for a long period of time. How long did it take? About 3 months. That's how long it took us to get everything cleaned up properly. From the Confluence side of things, where I am right now, again, they didn't really know best practices on Confluence until I started there. So we had, as of me starting, about 600 employees. We didn't get around to starting the cleanup until about 1,200. And everything was in a single super space. So the concept of trying to break spaces apart was extremely challenging. We broke things to the point where Cloud Premium support had to get involved, and the development team had to get involved in helping us actually pull things out of that space enough so that we weren't killing our instance on cloud, because we actually were causing some problems for ourselves performance-wise. So that one, I want to say, was only about 3 weeks of getting it moved into multiple spaces. And then since then, it's gotten a lot easier. But yeah, those are the 2 examples that I can give you.
Okay, well, that is all the questions that we have. So thank you to our panelists here. Greatly appreciate your insight. So I think the last item of business is the quiz. So, all right, and so you should be able to join. I've opened the quiz up now. You can start, if you haven't joined already, hop on. Do remember, yes, if you're not eligible for a prize, just tack your the DQ on there, and we'll give people a minute or two to get all connected. We've got 13 questions, mostly Canadian sort of general knowledge, a few questions here and there to see if you were paying attention during the presentation. So I think I'll take, yes, share screen. Okay. We've got 19 of the 20 odd people joined. We've got, we'll give another minute or two. I see a question posted in the chat. How and when do we get the recording? I believe we'll push this up on YouTube in a few days' time, and then links will be on the ACE ACE event once that's available. All right. I'm going to make the assumption that everybody that wants to or is able to participate in the quiz has signed up. Thanks to anybody that was able to attend but has to drop. No worries, totally understand. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to spend with us. So if everybody's ready, we will get started.
Hold on a minute. So how do we do this? So just put our name inside. Oh, sorry, I got called into a meeting, but what do we do?
No worries. Just if you take your phone and hit up the Slido link, put your name in. If you're not eligible for a prize, just put the little DQ next to your name.
Who is not eligible for a prize?
Any of the sponsors or Atlassian community letters. If you're you should know who you are. Yes. But.
Yeah. So I have Q&A and polls. I'm logged in. It says like there are several other users. Do I need to do anything, or that's it?
You should be ready to go if you're just seeing a ready to go for the quiz there.
Okay.
So I'm going to start it momentarily. I think we've got everybody, and you'll have 30 seconds to Pick the right, what you believe is the correct answer. Everything's multiple choice, so it's just, you know, A, B, C, or D or so. And you have about 30 seconds to answer. The tiebreaker is based around speed, so the quicker you can get the correct answer, the more likely you are to be on towards the top of the leaderboard and win a prize. Any other questions before we start?
So it's all going to be in the polls, is that correct, if that's the case?
It's all going to be through the Slido app on your phone.
Yeah, in the app there are two tabs, Q&A.
Yes,
and
it'll be on the
polls.
polls section.
Sorry.
Yes, the polls.
Thank you.
Yes,
Sorry.
sorry. No worries. Okay. All ready? Okay, start with an easy one. What is the longest city street in Canada? Granville Street, Gwen Boulevard, Yonge Street, or Bloor Street? So got 20 seconds. So pick A, B, C, or D. Five seconds. Right. So the majority went with Yonge Street, and that is the correct answer. It's in fact one of the longest city streets in the world. It stretches through a huge chunk of Toronto there. But, all right. So congratulations to those people. You're ahead. Next one. In which maritime province is St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, a public holiday? Is it Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, or Prince Edward Island? Got 10 seconds. Right. In this case, the popular one was Nova Scotia, but the correct answer is actually Newfoundland. Next one. Which of the following happens when a page is archived in Confluence? Is it archived content is excluded from the quick search, links to archived pages won't work anymore, archiving a page disables the ability to like a page, A and B, or A and C? Five seconds. Right. And it looks like most people were paying attention because the answer is yes, A and C. So you are able to, the content is excluded from the quick search and no longer able to like, but of course, archived links will still work. All right, next question. The Montreal Canadiens, one of the original 6 NHL teams, have which of the following as a nickname? Les Nordiques, les Habitants, les Enfants Terribles, and les Grands Fromages. Apologies, my high school French is extremely rusty.
Was pretty good.
And the correct answer is les Habitants. So good job. All right. What is the name of the mascot of the Quebec Winter Carnival held annually in Quebec City? Amic, Bonhomme, Victor, or Yopi?
And thank you for sourcing these, Brendan. I always enjoy these sort of general knowledge questions about Canada. They're fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Me too. I'm kind of doing it on favor over here too.
All right. Yes, most people are familiar. It is Bonhomme. Amic was the Olympic mascot back when Montreal who hosted the Olympics. Victor is the mascot of the Just for Laughs tournament, and Yopi is a mascot for the Montreal Canadiens. Question 6, according to Jimmy's presentation, which is not an item you should consider first when cleaning up Jira? Projects, custom fields, users, boards, filters, and dashboards. Oh my. All right, 5 seconds. Yeah. Quite a diverse group of answers. The correct one was users. Generally want to leave users as is or deal with it separately. So. All right. Of the 5 Canadian coins in common use, how many feature bodies of water in their design? 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? I know I hardly use actual physical money anymore, but I was actually a bit surprised when I found the correct answer for this one. All right. So the correct answer is in fact 4. The beaver on the nickel is sitting on a log in the middle of a lake. The schooner on the dime is sailing on the ocean. The loon on the loony is also on a lake, and the polar bear on the toonie is looking out on a piece of ice. The only coin that does not include a body of water is the caribou on the quarter. All right, next up, how far south will the Canada goose migrate during the winter? California, Florida, Mexico, or Guatemala? I actually only do these quizzes so far for the Cross Canada aces. So, but I do a lot of the quizzes, you know, on whatnot. My parents in particular are extreme fans of Jeopardy, so I've sort of gotten used to that. But, how far south? The correct answer is Mexico. They will travel sort of almost to as far south as the middle of Mexico, and that's before returning in the winter, or returning in the summer. All right, next up, what lake is the mythical lake monster Ogopogo said to live in? The Kootenay Lake, Okanagan Lake, Skaha Lake, or the Shuswap Lake? I don't know if I know this is more of a Western Canada thing, but hopefully some of the people out east will have heard of the Ogopogo. Does look like most people have, because the correct answer is the Okanagan Lake. There, one of the many glacial lakes in central British Columbia. Right, a few questions left. So question 10, what element was not discussed with regard to cleaning up a backlog? The 3 C's, the Kano model, the Macaw technique, or the Fibonacci sequence? Ten seconds. All right. And yes, the correct answer is the Macaw technique. All right, 3 questions to go, and then so to date, which is the only Canadian musical artist to be a solo headliner during a Super Bowl halftime show? Is it Drake, The Weeknd, Justin Bieber, or Bryan Adams? All right, a lot of different guesses. The correct answer is The Weeknd. He headlined it, I believe, in 2021, sort of during one of the sort of pandemic shows, which were a little toned down a bit, or at least didn't have as much people there. Next question, penultimate question. The Royal Winnipeg Ballet is the oldest ballet company in North America. In which year was it founded? 1928, 1939, 1944, or 1955? All right. Yes, the correct answer, 1939. So it's been around well over 75 years, coming up on, or well, almost 75 years, I think. Yeah. Nearly 75 years, yes. All right, and last question before we find out who has won fabulous prizes. Which Canadian is the most recent winner of a Best Director Oscar at the Academy Awards? Denis Villeneuve, James Cameron, Jason Reitman, or Paul Haggis? Ten seconds. All right. And yes, the majority have got it right. It is the self-proclaimed king of the world, James Cameron, who coincidentally will be sitting down with Scott Farquaad as part of one of the keynote speeches at Team 2023. So if you're attending or watching virtually, you'll get to see his thoughts on sort of the technology, the world of tech and how it pertains to filmmaking. So thank you everyone for participating. So let's see. All right. So in terms of an overall winner, we have Aiden, in first place. Denis, you were in second, but are ineligible, unfortunately. We've got VH, David Cowley, Peter Martin. So beyond the 5, so we got Majkin. Sorry, I am also butchering anybody's name there. So well done to everybody. Heather, how many prizes total do we have to give away?
I believe we have 8 as far as I am aware, but I will have to double check. So maybe we should see if you
Okay.
as well on the list.
Okay, so in order to claim your prize, we just need a means of contacting you. So if if I call out your name here, if you could just direct message me or Heather an email address that we can contact you at, and we will get the gift card sent out to you in the next couple of days or so. So Aiden, VH, David Cowley, Peter Martin, Cami, Tony, Max, Melchior, and Caitlin. I think that's 8, and I apologize if I'm miscounting.
Okay.
I think that's 9, but Caitlin, send us a notification anyways, and we'll if we've still got, if we miscounted there, you'll get something there.
All right.
All right. Okay, so I've gotten 4 out of the 8.
I've got 2.
All right. Okay, I got 5 now.
Yep.
Okay, and now 6. So I think we've got everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here. I think we've got everything. So we'll look for the YouTube up in the coming days. And thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us, and absolutely. And yeah, we just if we can just grab the do we have all the quiz winners there, Brendan?
I think we've got, yeah, I think we've got certainly I've got most of them. So if you've got some of the others, then we should be good. If and yeah.
Okay,
so.
yeah, I've got 3 myself.
Okay.
So thank you for everybody for coming today. Thank you to all of our speakers, and again to all of our sponsors. It has been absolutely fabulous having everybody here today. We will do another event like this again, so keep your eyes and ears open. And yes, we will be sending out links to these recordings in our lovely wrap-up emails, so please keep an eye out for those as well. So thank you again, everyone, and please enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Enjoy those upcoming spring breaks. Those of you with kids that get to have those, or those of you in college, enjoy those. And as always, have some fun with cleaning up your instances and cleaning up your Confluence and going for those training. Best of luck to those that are writing exams. All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.